the different languages that he could sing in. But unfortunately, Charles, not a single one of them is from Nigeria. So that's your challenge. The next time I meet you, because we're both from London, you will be singing a Nigerian song. Deal? You heard it here. Charles has promised me. Yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am delighted to be back in Leicester. A number of years ago, my firstborn son graduated from the University of Leicester. He did excellently well. So I'm a very proud mama. And so Leicester will always have a very special place in my heart. Thank you, Cynthia, for having me here this evening. Oh, thank you. I'll take the applause. Thank you. So as we have spent the month of March celebrating International Women's Day, I have attended many events. I like to think about International Women's Day as something that I'm very intentional about attending events where I know absolutely nobody. So I signed myself up because I want to go and spend time with women, some who look like me and others who don't, because I want to learn from as many different women as possible. I want to eavesdrop and figure out the conversations that are being had. And essentially, I want to build connections, because when we as women give ourselves that space for honest and genuine conversations and connections, I promise you that magic happens. So this evening, I'm going to be talking about a concept that I actually speak about very often. And I want to start by asking every single one of us a question. Whose permission are you waiting for? I want that question to land. Not simply land in your ears. I want that question to land in your heart. Whose permission are you waiting for? My darling mother, who is 86 years old now, loves to tell the story about how I came into this world. So I was born in Nigeria, and my mum was taken to the hospital, and she was exclaiming to the staff that the time had come for me to be born. And so she says that the midwife said, just give us a few moments. We're just going to go off outside the room and get things prepared so that we can come back and support you with giving birth to your baby. The midwife left, and I arrived as soon as she left. And so we talk about how I was not waiting for anybody's permission to come into this world. The time had come. And so I decided, all those 25 years ago, 25 times 2 years ago, I decided to show up in the world. And I think about how for so many of us as women from different backgrounds, women of different ages, if we are actually really honest with ourselves, there are moments where we need to pause and allow ourselves to reflect on the question that I started with. Whose permission are you waiting for? And you might be sitting here and thinking, Ronke, get over it, right? Okay, I've heard you. Nobody's permission. And then perhaps you reflect a little bit more and you think about maybe that one time when you were in that conversation and you knew that you should have said something, but you chose not to, because there was nobody in the room to validate or to invite your voice into the room. Perhaps you have sat in rooms where you wanted to push back, where you wanted to take up vocal space. You knew that you had something to say. You knew that your voice deserved to take up space in that room, but you held back because you were waiting, often subconsciously, for somebody else to give you permission to take up space. Women, I see this over and over and over again. And I share this with you not as somebody who is perfect in this regard, by no means. I often say when I work with my clients that I'm not showing up with you as some sage who exists on the stage. Rather, I am showing up as simply a guide on the side who is also navigating my own journey. What does that look like in my own life? So you would have heard it said by the wonderful Zia who introduced me that I am a lawyer. Well, the last time I practiced law was probably about 9 years ago. So when I was 17 years old, I came to the UK from Nigeria with the beautiful dream, goal, and vision of studying law. Both my parents are lawyers in Nigeria, and so they had beautiful and really lofty goals for me to follow in their footsteps. And follow in their footsteps, I did. I came over, I got my degree, I did really well. I went on to begin to study for a master's, and I was convinced that I had done really well. Until results day came and I discovered that I failed. That's a story for another day. I like to share it because I think it's so important that we give ourselves permission to not only talk about how we got here and how great we are when we're here, but to talk about the challenges, the twists and the turns in the journeys that all of us face. But I got qualified as a lawyer and I practiced for about 15 years. And then I got to a point where, frankly, I started to feel extremely suffocated. It got to a point where so much of my work had more to do with paperwork than with people. And for me, I knew that the gift that I have been given is the ability to connect with other humans. And paperwork was not giving me that joy. And so I was faced with a decision. I'll just let Siri do its thing. That's fine. Siri's always listening. Siri's always listening. So by this stage, I was about 40 years old. And I knew that I was done with the law. But how on earth was I supposed to communicate that to my beloved parents who had sacrificed and whose dreams were placed on me, elevating to the highest levels of the law? How was I to explain that to my husband, who had also invested time and money and energy in a dream and a vision of what our lives would get to look like? And what I discovered in this season was that I became somewhat stuck. I was stuck because I realized that I was waiting. I was waiting for permission, waiting for the nod, waiting for the thumbs up, waiting for the green light, and it was not coming. And so I knew that I would have to make a decision to give myself permission to take a leap of faith from what I knew to the unknown. And I knew that ultimately, the permission that I needed was one that I needed from myself. But it was tricky. The law was all I had ever known. And I had thought that I would be a lawyer for the rest of my life. And the challenge was that I actually had no idea what it was that I wanted to step into. So it felt like, Ronke, who are you kidding anyway? But I'm so grateful that with support and with guidance, I did give myself permission. And I went on a journey that included twists and turns, victories and failures. But I went on a journey that has brought me to this place, to running a business that I love, to supporting incredible women, to also give themselves permission to show up and to speak up from a place of intention. I often say that as women, when we speak with intention and not for attention, that it becomes an absolute game changer. So I want you to just think about that. When you finally give yourself permission to speak, will you allow it to be from a place of intention? Or will you be pulled in by the noise and allow yourself to be swept away by speaking simply for attention? Because there is a difference, and there is an impact, and there is a consequence. So ladies, even at that age where ultimately, why am I waiting for somebody else's permission? I realized that I was. And it's a pattern that I have seen come up in my life at different points. Should I speak? Should I hold back? Should I go? Should I stop? Who is smiling? Who is encouraging? And when there is nobody but myself, what does that get to mean? A number of years ago, myself and my husband had made a decision that in our lifetime, we wanted to do this one thing together. And I would look at other individuals who would step up and say, guess what? I am doing this thing. And I would look at them and say, yes, that's really good for you. It's not something that I can do. And then once again, I realized that, Ronke, you are waiting. You are waiting for somebody else to say, actually, maybe you can do this. Maybe you are able enough. Maybe you are worthy enough. Maybe you are this or that enough. And that never came. And so, again, I needed to dig deep and give myself permission to allow a dream that my husband and I to be fulfilled. And it's one that took me to the starting line a number of years ago of the London Marathon. I know. I saw somebody's face like, what? Yes, I know. Running 26.2 miles because I wanted to raise money for the asthma charity because they're members of my family who struggle with asthma. I promise you that it was something that I thought I would never, ever be able to do. But once I gave myself permission to commit to doing it, guess what happened? The energy showed up. And so, as I started to train week after week, mile after mile, it happened. And yes, it took me a long time to complete it. And yes, I got to the end and I was weeping and asking myself, why did I choose to do this? But I did it. And again, I share that to say that when we give ourselves permission, once we make that decision, we will be amazed as to what gets to happen. But whilst we remain waiting, those feelings of smallness and stuckness keep us bound. And I'm not talking simply about shifting from one career to another. I'm not talking simply about making a decision for a run. I'm talking about the very specific things in each of our lives that demand an answer to that question. That question that says, whose permission are you waiting for? And the reality is that in the very same way that we begin our lives, that I began my life without waiting for permission from another. The midwife walked out and I walked into the world, not quite walked, I kind of jumped out. In that very same way, life happens. And there are seasons in our lives where permission is not sought. And in those moments, that's when we really come face to face with questions about how we are living this one wild and precious life, using this one wild and precious gift of a voice that we've been given. Because one day, that permission will no longer be available to us. And I know that, and I still feel it deeply. Because only, goodness, a number of months ago, on the 2nd of August, 2024, without him giving us permission to say goodbye, my beloved father breathed his last breath. His voice was no longer to be heard. His journey ended. He was one of my greatest champions, one of my greatest supporters. And when his journey ended, I was reminded that this permission thing, it's something that is worth really thinking about. He didn't seek any of our permission before he slipped away. And even as I still navigate the grief of losing somebody who will forever hold one of the most special places in my heart, I'm reminded daily that, Ronke, the only permission worth waiting for is the one that demands the fullness of yourself. It's the one that's been given to you by your Creator, God. So live fully, speak freely, show up boldly, because the only person getting in the way of you giving yourself permission is you. Thank you very much.